Part 3 of The Artist and the Entrepreneur meets collapsing and posturing. I didn't think there was going to be a part 3 or even a part 2, but this is something I remember talking about earlier years ago in workshops. It would come up from time to time, and I've just never had a place for it, and I guess this is where I'm going to put it. So what I realized was that in the center of this collapsing and posturing is so right here in the middle. What's there? What's there is nothing. And that's the trouble. Well, and I don't know if actually that's exactly true. But there's either, let's say this, there's either nothing or there's something. And what I mean is there's either nothing good or there's something bad. There's a poverty there, yeah, nothing good. Or there's a trauma, there's a hurt there. That's the thing that's in the center of the collapsing and posturing that people work hard to cover. There's a real fragile sense of self or almost no sense of self. So people who posture, it's just a strategy to deal with that lack of sense of self. People create a whole architecture and armor around that lack of themselves. This is the sort of grand narcissist, you know, make themselves very big. But why do you make yourself so big? Why so grandiose? Well, one makes oneself grandiose because one has no sense of inner grandeur. And the collapser, it sort of gives into that, oh, there's nothing good there. I'm just bad. It's, you know, there's a kind of, I'm not worthy. Why am I not worthy? Well, because there's something bad here. And we tend to personalize it. I think it was Martin P. Seligman in his work in Learned Optimism talked about the 3 Ps of learned helplessness. First P is that it's pervasive. So this thing here, this nothing good, this something bad, it's my whole life. It's pervasive. It's everywhere. It's not just this one little part of my life. It's the whole thing. So it's pervasive. It's permanent. This will never go away. This will always be here. I'm just doomed to this. And third, most damning, it's personal. This is who I am, really deep down in my core. And so to deal with this, people, I think, either collapse or they posture to cover what isn't there or what's there that they don't want people to see. And if this is this black hole is the gravitational center of your life, then Gabor Mate talks about this. He says, if you feel like you have to choose between attachment or authenticity, you will always choose attachment. Yeah. Attachment's always going to win. If you have to choose between being real or belonging, you're going to choose belonging. And so the strategy on the side of collapse for choosing belonging is I'll overgive. And the strategy and posture is I'm going to be so amazing that everyone's going to want me, everybody's going to respect me, and I'll belong to this upper echelon. I'll show how good I am, how worthy I am, how amazing I am, so that people will love me. Fundamentally, collapse, you know, sounds a lot like this. Love me, right? And posturing sounds like exclamation mark. Respect me. You will respect me. But it's the same thing. You know, value me. I want to belong. And just different strategies. And it's really easy to condemn the posturing thing because we see the posturing entrepreneur. We don't want to be that. But that's just what they learned. And sometimes it's actually what's happening is you have somebody who's the collapsed artist who's been taught to do the posturing entrepreneur thing. And it's not their nature either to be an entrepreneur or to posture, but it's an affectation because I learned how to do it. And I had a friend, a dear woman who I know, who is absolutely this, if tendency wise. But she went to a workshop and this fellow taught her how to do the big sail and the clothes. And so she wanted to practice it. So she got her friends and family into her living room and she did this stuff. She did the posturing entrepreneur. And people looked at her like, what? Jane, what happened to you? And just, God, straight back. So sometimes it's just a strategy consciously, or sometimes it's an unconscious strategy. But either way, it's a strategy. And of course, what I'm saying is neither collapsing or posturing actually work in the long term. And the reason they don't work and the reason we work them is because of this. There's a grand absence or the presence of something. And again, that absence could have been the absence of love or affection. My mom, she got a dog years ago, farm dogs at a tree farm outside of Edmonton. And the first time I met the dog just flattened itself on the ground and like a reptile under the couch. And I said, wow, who beat that dog? And my mom said, I think it was the other side. I said, how do you mean? She said, I don't think anyone ever touched that dog. So, the absence of touch, the absence of love can be this, but so can abuse. And the consequence, I think, can be very similar in terms of the symptoms. So the way out of this is this has to finally be dealt with. This has to be healed and addressed. Because otherwise, we're trying to cover it. We're trying to cover it with our collapse and overgiving, compensating with generosity, or compensating with preening and look at me, how amazing I am. I don't need anybody. I'm totally self-sufficient. But both of them are a cover. They're a distraction for this, which is desperately needing some care. We don't get to composure unless this gets looked at. And that takes a lot of grief. There's a lot of sadness there because we have to finally contend with either what was there that we wish weren't, or what wasn't there that we wish had been. So there's a lot of grief, and more so tending to the meaning that we've attached to it. Okay, well, those things never happened to me. And it's almost always completely unconscious. But we think, because I wasn't loved in that way, or because I was hurt in that way, it means these things about me. And as long as we have these beliefs about ourselves, we're just never going to be able to be composed or comfortable in our own skin. So generally, I tend to lean very heavily towards away from the inner work, because I see that so often it just gets pitched or sold. But my colleague Betty Cotton-Myrtles and I have had many conversations about this. TrueWealthWithBetty.com. She does a lot of work helping people identify what is this hole and what needs to be done to heal it. And until we identify what happened or never happened and the beliefs that came out of it, you can't be comfortable in your own skin. Because the whole thing is, in these, is we're either trying to cover that skin with armor, or we are trying to get out of that skin. Yeah. But once we're composed, then there's a chance. There's a chance that we can make this work. Because these aren't the problem. These are the problem. And that's the problem. But it's also the portal into the healing. We don't get to this except through this. That's the way in. The old idea that the wound is the way in. And then it gives a chance for the marriage to happen, because until we get here, you have two reactive children dating, trying to make it work, and that relationship is doomed to fail. You need two adults coming together and working it out. Because if you have two kids having kids, that kid is not going to be healthy. But if you have two adults having a child, now that child has a chance to be raised in a healthy way. And that child, of course, is your business, is the child of the artist and the entrepreneur. So maybe there'll be a part 4, I don't know, but that's what I've got for now. Thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks to everyone who subscribes, for sharing these videos if you do, and your comments. I'm so glad to see your comments when you put them there. And of course, if you give the like to this video, a little thumbs up, it does Jimmy, the algorithm, in my favor. So thank you so much. Hey. Oh. I gotta turn it on.